Somewhere in East Texas, on a stretch of Interstate 20, between Longview and Kilgore, a black Pontiac Grand Prix sat on the westbound shoulder for 5 days before anyone connected it to a missing woman. By then, the driver's seat had been pushed all the way back, far too far for the woman who owned the car, a woman who stood just 4 feet 11 inches tall. A plastic gas can that did not belong to her sat in the trunk. Her purse was inside, her wallet was inside, her ex-boyfriend's broken cell phone was inside, but her own cell phone, the one that would later ring in the hands of strangers, was gone. And so was she. The surveillance footage from the last place she was seen is grainy and haunting. It shows a young woman walking toward the front door of a nightclub, stepping out into the Texas night, just after midnight. Seconds later, a man in a white cowboy hat follows behind her. He glances in her direction. And then the footage ends. That woman was 23-year-old Brandi Ellen Wells. She walked out of Graham Central Station in Longview, Texas, in the early morning hours of August 3, 2006. She has never been seen again. No arrest has ever been made. No body has ever been found. And nearly 20 years later, her mother still waits by the phone. This is her story. Before we go any further, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or your town in the comments. It matters more than you think, because Brandi disappeared from East Texas. Someone watching this video tonight might live near where this case went cold. Someone might remember something that has never been said out loud. Brandi Ellen Wells was born on November 28, 1982, in Tyler, Texas, a city of about 100,000 people in the eastern part of the state, roughly 90 minutes east of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. Tyler is known as the Rose Capital of America for its long history of rose cultivation, but for the people who live there, it is a tight-knit community where families put down roots and stay. Brandi grew up surrounded by people who loved her. Her mother, Ellen Tant, raised her to be kind and compassionate. She had a half-sister named Samantha, who lived in a different part of Texas, and a godmother named Michelle Cole, who was like a second mother to her. Those who knew Brandi described her as sweet, outgoing, and trusting, the kind of person who never met a stranger. Her mother would later say that Brandi believed everyone was as kind as she was, that no one would ever want to harm anybody. Her family called her by the nicknames Blinky and Boo. Brandi attended Chapel Hill High School in Tyler, where she became involved with the Flag Corps, the color guard team that performs alongside marching bands. She was a flute player and a talented performer, and her time with the Flag Corps earned her opportunities she was determined to build on. After graduating, she enrolled at the University of Texas at Tyler, got married, and tried to balance a husband, a job, and a full course load. The balance proved difficult. The marriage ended in divorce, and Brandi stepped away from school. She spent time living in San Antonio with her aunt, Aline Cormier, before eventually making her way back to East Texas. By the summer of 2006, she was 23 years old and living with a roommate in Brownsboro, a small town about 20 minutes from Tyler. She was rebuilding. She had applied to Trinity Valley Community College, where a scholarship through the Flag Corps was waiting for her. She had a new job lined up at the local Walmart. She was going to study education because what she wanted more than anything was to become a kindergarten or first-grade teacher. Teaching ran in her family. Her grandmother had been a teacher, and Brandi wanted to follow in those footsteps. Her mother would later say that Brandi would have been a wonderful teacher, that she would have molded young minds and set children on the right path. In August 2006, Brandi was waiting for band camp to start. She was on the edge of a new chapter. Life was looking up. And now that you know who Brandi was, not just a name on a missing persons flyer, but a young woman with a scholarship, a plan, and people who adored her, I want to ask you something. Does she remind you of anyone? A sister, a daughter, a friend from your hometown who was just getting her life together? Tell me about that person in the comments. keeping Brandi's memory human is how we keep this case alive. On the evening of August 2, 2006, Brandi stopped by her mother's apartment in Tyler. She changed out of what she had been wearing and put on an outfit for a night out. A dark floral print tube top in brown and cream, a pair of rust-colored gaucho pants, and black strapless high-heeled sandals with a floral design. She told her mother she was going out to the club with some friends. She asked Ellen if she could borrow her car or some gas money. Brandi's own car, a black 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix, was running low on fuel, and she did not have much money. She had been funding her gas by donating plasma and was planning to pawn a diamond pendant necklace. She owned no credit cards. Ellen did not have cash to spare, and her own car was also low on gas. So Brandi took her Grand Prix. Ellen assumed Brandi was heading to the Electric Cowboy, a club right down the road from the apartment. It was a reasonable assumption, but Brandi had other plans. Her first stop that night was a local bowling alley in Tyler, where a family friend named Jeanette Green worked as a bartender. Brandi ordered a drink and asked to put it on her mother's tab. She mentioned to Green that she was planning to drive to Graham Central Station, on a nightclub in Longview, more than 45 minutes away. Green tried to talk her out of it. The drive was long. Brandi was alone. She was unfamiliar with the area, but Brandi had made up her mind. She got in her car and headed east toward Longview. She had never been to Graham Central Station before and had to call the club several times on her way just to get directions. By the time she finally arrived, her car was running on fumes. Surveillance cameras inside the club captured what happened next. At Graham Central Station, patrons had to swipe their driver's license upon entry. Records show Brandi's license was scanned, and the footage shows her entering the club at approximately 10:36 that evening. 2 minutes later, she can be seen checking in at the front counter. For the next 2 hours, Brandi was inside the club. According to what patrons later told police, she was asking people if she could borrow a couple of dollars for gas. It is unclear whether anyone helped her. Just before 12:30 in the morning on August 3rd, the surveillance cameras captured Brandi walking past the counter and out the front door. She was alone. She did not appear to be intoxicated. And then, seconds after Brandi walked out, a man in a white cowboy hat can be seen following behind her. According to her mother, who later reviewed the footage, the man looked over in Brandi's direction as he exited. At that point in the video, only Brandi's feet are visible. She appeared to walk toward him. Then, the footage ends. Brandi Ellen Wells was never seen again. It was not until the next evening that anyone began to worry. Ellen tried calling Brandi's cell phone, but every call went straight to voicemail. That was unusual. Brandi was the kind of person who kept her phone on and answered it. At first, Ellen thought maybe her daughter had stayed the night with a friend. But then Brandi's roommate in Brownsboro called, asking where Brandi was. She had been expected back that afternoon and had never shown up. Ellen called the police. At first, she told the officer that Brandi had gone to the Electric Cowboy in Tyler, but her youngest daughter overheard the conversation and corrected her. Brandi had not gone to the Electric Cowboy. She had gone to Graham Central Station in Longview. That changed everything. Brandi had driven more than 45 minutes to a club in an unfamiliar city, alone, with almost no gas and no money. And now, no one could reach her. Ellen filed a missing persons report with the Tyler Police Department. By August 5th, the Longview Police Department had taken over the investigation. Officers obtained the surveillance footage from Graham Central Station, which confirmed that Brandi had entered the club alone and left alone, with the exception of the man in the white cowboy hat who followed behind her. But here is where the investigation ran into its first critical problem. On the morning of August 3rd, at approximately 9 a.m., a highway trooper on patrol had noticed a black Pontiac Grand Prix sitting on the westbound shoulder of Interstate 20 near Farm to Market Road, 2087, between Longview and Kilgore, roughly 300 yards west of the FM 2087 exit. The car would have been heading in the direction of Tyler. The trooper ran the plates. Finding no record of it being stolen, he tagged it and drove away. No one connected that car to Brandi Wells for days. It sat there on the side of the interstate, in the open, visible to every passing driver, while Brandi's family was calling hospitals and police departments. On August 6th, a passerby confirmed the vehicle was still sitting in the same spot. It was not until approximately August 8th that investigators finally linked the abandoned Grand Prix to the missing woman from Brownsboro. By then, any evidence that might have existed on or around that vehicle had been exposed to 5 days of Texas summer heat, passing traffic, and the elements. When CSI finally processed the car, cadaver dogs were brought in but could not pick up a scent. What they did find inside the car raised more questions than it answered. Brandi's purse and wallet were there. Her personal belongings were there. An ex-boyfriend's non-functional cell phone, he was deployed overseas at the time, was found inside. A napkin with a man's name and phone number was also discovered. Police contacted the man, who cooperated fully. He told investigators he had met Brandi that night at the club, offered to buy her a drink, which she declined, and that they had parted ways. He was not considered a suspect, but two things were deeply wrong. First, the driver's seat had been pushed all the way back, far too far for Brandi, who was 4 feet 11 inches tall. Her mother later sat behind the wheel and could barely reach the pedals. Her stepfather, who stood 6'1", sat comfortably in the same position. Someone significantly taller than Brandi had been the last person to drive that car. Second, a plastic gas can was found in the trunk. Brandi's family said it did not belong to her. The keys were missing. The driver's door had been left open, and Brandi's personal cell phone, the one she carried everywhere, was gone. The FBI was called in to assist. Investigators examined the cell phone records tied to Brandi's missing phone. For 9 days after her disappearance, the phone was silent. Then suddenly a series of calls appeared. Short calls, 2 or 3 minutes each, one right after another. The calls were traced to 3 men who claimed they had found the phone. All 3 were brought in for questioning. All 3 were given polygraph examinations. 2 of them passed. 1 of them did not. The man who failed the polygraph told investigators he had found Brandi's phone on the side of the road in an area on the south side of Longview, near where her vehicle had been abandoned. That area was known to authorities as a corridor associated with drug activity and sex trafficking. His story reportedly changed more than once during questioning. He was interviewed multiple times. Despite failing the polygraph, he was never publicly identified, never charged, and was eventually not called a suspect in Brandi's disappearance. The man in the white cowboy hat, the one seen on surveillance footage following Brandi out of the club, was later determined by the Longview Police Department to have no apparent connection to the case. So at this point, investigators had surveillance footage of Brandi leaving alone. A car driven by someone taller, a gas can that was not hers. A missing cell phone that turned up in the hands of a man who failed a polygraph, and no physical evidence of what happened between the nightclub parking lot and that stretch of Interstate 20. What is your read on this? What do you think happened to Brandi after she walked out of that club? Drop your theory in the comments. I want to hear it. On September 19, 2006, roughly 7 weeks after Brandi vanished, her family reached out to the Laura Recovery Center, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping find missing people. On September 23rd, volunteers gathered at the Elks Lodge on Highway 80 in Longview to organize a large-scale search. They fanned out across the area surrounding Graham Central Station, using volunteers on horseback and 4-wheelers. Cadaver dogs were brought in once again. They found nothing. Additional searches followed in the weeks and months ahead. Specially trained dogs were deployed in Longview. Tips came in. Possible sightings were reported. All of them led nowhere. Then, on October 29, 2006, less than 3 months after Brandi went missing, The burning body of an unidentified young woman was discovered lying face down on a pile of brush in the oil fields of Gregg County near Kilgore. The location was approximately 7 miles from where Brandi's car had been found. The victim was a white female, estimated to be between 17 and 25 years old. Evidence of sexual assault was found at the scene. The body was so badly burned that visual identification was impossible. Ellen Tant's heart sank. She contacted authorities. "I convinced it could be her daughter, but DNA testing ruled it out." The burned remains did not belong to Brandi Wells. The victim became known as Lavender Doe, named for the purple sweater found at the scene. Her identity would remain unknown for more than a decade. In 2007, a convicted sex offender named Joseph Wayne Burnett, who was from the Longview area, emerged as a person of interest in the Lavender Doe case. Burnett was already in prison for failing to register as a sex offender. Authorities looked into whether he could be linked to other missing women in East Texas, including Brandi. The possibility haunted Ellen. But no definitive link to Brandi's disappearance was ever established. In 2018, Burnett confessed to the murder of Lavender Doe, who was eventually identified through DNA genealogy as Dana Lynn Dodd. In 2020, he was sentenced to 50 years for her murder and the murder of another woman. Whether Burnett had anything to do with Brandi's disappearance remains an open question that has never been publicly resolved. For close to 20 years now, Brandi's mother has waited for a phone call that never comes, the one that tells her what happened to her daughter. If you have ever waited for answers about someone you love, if you know what it is like to go to bed every night not knowing, I want to hear from you. That kind of endurance deserves to be acknowledged. Leave your story in the comments. The years passed and the case grew cold. Leads dried up. Investigators cycled through the Longview Police Department. Darren Lair, who was a sergeant with the crimes unit when Brandi disappeared and who would later become the department's deputy chief, has described it as an incredibly rare case. Most missing persons cases, he has said, are resolved within a day or two. Brandi's was different. In 2010, nearly 4 years after Brandi vanished, Ellen's phone rang. A man who identified himself as Tim told her that Brandi was alive and well, living in Kansas City, Missouri. Before Ellen could ask any questions, before she could get an address, a phone number, anything, the call was disconnected. Ellen made a public plea for Tim to call back. He never did. The call has never been confirmed as credible, and it has never been confirmed as a hoax. It hangs in the air, another unanswered question in a case full of them. Ellen attended a human trafficking seminar in Tyler in 2012, where she learned about trafficking networks that reportedly operated in the East Texas corridor. When advocates from women's shelters in the region confirmed that sex traffickers were known to target women at nightclubs. Whether this had anything to do with Brandi's disappearance is unknown, but for a mother searching for any explanation, it was one more possibility to carry. Brandi's case was featured on Investigation Discovery's series Disappeared in its very first season, in an episode titled The End of Innocence. The exposure brought renewed attention, but no breakthrough. Through it all, Ellen has refused to declare Brandi legally dead, as Texas law would allow after 7 years. She has kept photographs of her daughter all over her bedroom, the first thing she sees in the morning, the last thing she sees at night. She has held on to an age progression photo of what Brandi might look like today, and she has never stopped talking to her daughter in her mind. The Longview Police Department has said that limited witnesses from the night of Brandi's disappearance, combined with the sheer volume of tips that came in over the years, have made the case extraordinarily difficult. Ellen has been critical of the department's communication, saying there have been long stretches where investigators did not contact the family. Brandi's childhood friend Kayla Mitchell, who had known her since junior high, has remained close to the family. She has spoken publicly about what Brandi meant to her and about feeling obligated to return the kindness Brandi once showed her during one of the most difficult moments of her own life. And Brandi's half-sister, Samantha Rodriguez, who was just 17 when Brandi disappeared and who had spent the 4th of July with her just a month before, has continued to speak out on her sister's behalf, keeping the case in the public eye nearly 2 decades later. We are about to look at where this case stands today. But before we do, I want you to pause and think. After everything you have heard, what do you believe is the key to unlocking what happened to Brandi Wells? Is it the man who failed the polygraph? The gas can in the trunk? Something about that surveillance footage that has not been examined closely enough? Drop your answer in the comments before you keep watching. As of 2026, Brandi Ellen Wells has been missing for nearly 20 years. She would be 43 years old. No arrest has ever been made. No remains have ever been found. No suspect has ever been publicly named. The Longview Police Department says the case remains open and that any new leads or information will be investigated. The department has acknowledged that fresh eyes on the case, new investigators looking at old evidence, can sometimes reveal what others have missed. But for Ellen Tant, the passage of time has not dulled the pain. She has spoken about it in terms that make the scale of the loss impossible to ignore. A child born on the night Brandi disappeared would now be old enough to graduate from high school. That is how long Brandi has been gone. Ellen has said she believes a stranger took her daughter. She has said she does not believe Brandi left that parking lot alone. And she has said something that any mother in her position would feel, that she hears Brandi's voice in the back of her mind, telling her to keep looking. Brandi Wells was a young woman on the verge of becoming the person she always wanted to be. She was going to walk into a classroom full of children and teach them to read, to count, to believe in themselves. She had the scholarship. She had the plan. She had one last summer night before the hard work began. And somewhere between a nightclub parking lot in Longview and a dark stretch of Interstate 20, that future was stolen from her. She deserves to be found. Her family deserves to know what happened. And the person who knows what happened that night, because someone does, deserves to finally tell the truth. If you have any information about the disappearance of Brandi Ellen Wells, please contact the Longview Police Department at 903-237-1199 or the Texas Department of Public Safety Missing Persons Clearinghouse at 1-8003-463243. Every case deserves an answer. Every family deserves the truth. If this story stayed with you, if Brandi's face is going to be in your mind tonight, then subscribe to Echo of Evidence. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. Because every time her story is told, it is one day closer to answers for her family.